2 domestic light heavyweights, 2 world-class light heavyweights, but 2 guys from Croydon. So we saw with the success of Smith against Fowler, these are the kind of fights we should be making. On the night, we'll all be really excited about the fight. It's a tremendous fight and an obvious fight to make, but sometimes the obvious fights don't actually get made.
You did say this week WBA eliminator. I did notice. I think they're 3-7 there. Is that just an eliminator or final?
Yeah, just an eliminator. But look, I mean, obviously, I can't lie. I'm positioning people for Canelo Alvarez. If he fights in London in December, which is a very big possibility, he's got 2 options really: John Ryder, the mandatory at 168, and also the winner of this fight. So it's good to gear those guys up in a position. There's a lot of people looking for shots at the world title. We made a huge offer to Anthony Yard to fight Joshua Buatsi. He wanted to wait for Joe Smith. Joe Smith's fighting Better Biev. You can't wait for these opportunities. This is life-changing money. And if you believe you can win, you've got to take them. Both these guys believe they can win this fight. Fair play to them. They're jumping in and giving us a great fight.
When will we have news on venue and undercard?
Should have had it today. The venue we are locking in. You'll get it tonight, tomorrow morning at the latest. Undercard will be announced before the end of the weekend.
Final one on this. People were talking about this clashing with Parker Andrade up in Derby. Was there a temptation to move it?
Not really. This was the night that we've planned for probably 4 or 5 weeks with DAZN. Obviously, they've got shows all around the world every week. I saw the announcement of Andrade 21st. It's the same. Last weekend you had a BT show, you had UFC, you had Pro Bellum. This weekend Sky announced a show on the same night as Martinez against Warrington. I think you got a Pro Bellum card on Thursday, Friday. It's just how it is in boxing now. You know, there's so much competition, there's so many shows, and it pushes you to try and be the best fight of the night. And on Saturday, coming, we are the best fight of the night with Warrington against Martinez.
Eddie, we saw you pictured at the UFC with Dana White. What was said between you? Were you talking about Canelo, who's the man, or working
really,
together?
It was amazing. I mean, he invited me down there, and when I turned up, I was sitting next to him at the Octagon, there. And I've never really been before, and I've never seen the sport up close. It was thrilling. It was so interesting to actually learn and see the sport up close. Obviously, UFC is a huge organisation, and yeah, look, we all know I'm the best boxing promoter in the world, but am I the best promoter in the world? I think you probably have to give the edge to Dana White. So it was pretty good to be around him and just learn. I'm not arrogant enough to think that I can't learn from people who are very successful at what they do. And Dana White has always been unbelievably courteous to me. And I appreciate that and I respect that and I admire the job that he's doing.
What do you think the main things boxing can take from UFC and what Dana White's doing?
So many different things. I mean, firstly, you know, even down to small things like the gap between fights. And I don't know if this is every UFC, but there seemed to be a traditional break period between fights. Sometimes when you're doing boxing, you're led by the broadcaster. If you want to slow the night down a little bit because you want to get the main event right, you might have a 20-minute gap. I didn't feel any of those gaps. I felt a very clear flow all night, almost to the point that a fight would finish. You'd get up, you'd have a chat with people, 2-3 minutes later you'd sit back down, the next one was in. Loads and loads of different things, production, music, lighting, so many different things, and you know, I really enjoyed it.
You said on Instagram Live yesterday about Anthony Joshua and Oleksandr Usyk. You think that's next? Is that based on a conversation with Alex Krasov?
News about Vasily Lomachenko not fighting George Kambosos, and it makes me think that Usyk will probably follow suit. So I'm due to have a conversation with Alex Krasov, and we need a decision. Quite frankly, you know, we need to know what's happening, and then we'll make our decision.
When do you expect you'll have to sort of set that deadline for the
End of this week, really.
Interim?
End of this week, really. You know, AJ's on me to fight. He's ready to go. He wants to be active, and you know, we need to get a decision ASAP.
If you had to put a percentage chance on it, what do you expect?
I hate those questions because I mean, how do you know? I mean, I would have said, I would have said 3 or 4 days ago, 70-30 he'll take the fight, but now maybe 70-30 against. I just don't, you know, I don't know where he is, what he's thinking, what the situation is, but we need to know selfishly, and now we're going to start putting the pressure on for that.
Eddie, just a quick one on Derek Chisora. He was down at the UFC the other day as well. Andy Ruiz fight being talked about. What do you expect will happen next?
I think Andy Ruiz will fight Luis Ortiz. I spoke to Louis de Cubas last night. I love that fight, and I like the Areola fight, so we'll see what happens, but Del Boy's on me as well for a date, so trying to deliver a big fight for it.
Why is it so difficult for promoters to make a fight? Is it greed from the promoter or the boxer?
It's really like, it's more, a lot of the time, it's a lot of intrinsic stuff. So like, you look at this fight, for example, Craig Richards wants to fight for the world title. Joshua Buatsi wants to fight for the world title. But I'm looking at it going, guys, it's not there at the moment. Why not fight each other? So maybe, I don't know, Peter Sims says, well, Buatsi's kind of like the golden boy at Matchroom, so we're not fighting him. And maybe Buatsi goes, well, you know Peter Sims and Tony Sims, so you're, or maybe not him, but maybe people in the team. Sometimes you just got to think with a clear head about what makes sense. I keep going back to Smith against Fowler. Great example. 10,000 in there, great audience, great night for everybody. Everyone made a huge amount of money. Same with this fight. So if you believe you can win, if you believe you're good enough, these fights should become more regular.
You see Felix Cash featuring in this card?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I'm disappointed because the European title fight, which was due to happen, I think, this weekend, has been postponed. And we're supposed to be fighting for the European title, so I have to see what happens. But I want to keep Felix Cash active.
You meant?
How do you think it is next? I know fight in the UK.
I think in December he'll fight in Mexico or the UK, and I think I will be pushing, obviously, for the UK. I can't lie; it'd be amazing to do a fight in Mexico at the same time. But you know, so I want to get people and options in position to fight him, and it will it's a life-changing opportunity. You fight NT Joshua, you fight Canelo Alvarez, you change your life forever. That's why you see people queuing up and begging it on Twitter. I'd be begging it. If I was a fighter, I'd be begging to fight Canelo Alvarez every day because you want the biggest payday in boxing. Payday, you're on payday. I know that.
Eddie, just a quick question on both fighters. You promote both guys. Which one are you picking to win?
I think with the bookies and to the casual fan, Buatsi's the favourite in the fight. But I see a belief in Craig Richards, honestly, that he believes he's the favourite in this fight. He's improved a lot, he's really grown into the weight, he's coming off a good win, he's been nice and active, which could be a difference as well. So I actually think it's a 50-50 fight.
And quick question on Sonny Edwards. Did you watch his fight and how
I saw the first few rounds. I talked to him this morning, I spoke to Richard Schaefer. I'd love to make the Martinez fight. He has to fight Arroyo, but once he gets that out of the way, happy to make that unification.
Do you think Buatsi needed an opponent the calibre of Craig Richards in his next fight?
Not just the calibre, but the size of the fight and the profile of the fight as well. Like Vlasov was a great fight, but this is different. You know, this is a fight that the casual fans, you know, people in boxing, people in London will get excited about. It's going to do big numbers, and this is the kind of fight I think both guys needed.
Eddie, how unlikely is the Devin Haney Kambosos fight, considering
it's the only option for Kambosos? I mean, you know, it's like Kambosos come out and said, well, Loma's there, so all right, we'll give Devin Haney the shot. You know, he's a world champion as well. We've been waiting for this shot for a long time, so we've had an offer last night, we're going for it today, and hopefully we can get that fight made.
You said the Usyk situation isn't resolved yet, but how likely or how easy is a Joe Joyce fight to make if that was an option, you and Frank together?
I've no idea how much money they want. You know, I think I haven't had an approach from Frank Warren for that fight. I've had approaches from virtually every other promoter trying to, you know, put their name forward. It's a good fight. AJ has no problem fighting Joe Joyce. If I was advising him, I would say you should be fighting a southpaw, but they're not many. Luis Ortiz, Otto Warlin, Zile Zhang, who's now fighting Hrgovic. So, but he wants a good fight, and we'll have to see. But first things first, we need to make sure we know what's happening with Usyk.
Eddie, do you think Joe Joyce deserves to be in the ring with Anthony Joshua? If that was to go ahead.
Yeah, Joe Joyce is a world-class heavyweight. I mean, what's his best win? Daniel Dubois, and that's his only win, really. He beat a Takam that's done. But he's a good fighter, Joe Joyce. I think it's a good fight. AJ, they've known each other a long time. AJ stopped him twice, is it? I think in the amateurs. He thinks it's a straightforward fight. But Joe Joyce is a very tough man. Like all these guys, sometimes they just queue up and wait. Joe Joyce needs to get active. I know he's been injured, but if you don't fight AJ, get him fighting. And we're happy to explore that fight.
What's AJ's mindset at the moment towards all of it?
Desperate to fight. Was at the UFC on Saturday. He just wants to get in there. He wants to fight. Wants to fight Usyk. But if it can't be Usyk, just get in.